All right. We are calling this meeting to order, October 3rd, Mountlake Terrace City Council, and please join me for the flag salute. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right. Madam City Clerk, please do roll call for us.
Councilmember Payne Donovan.
Present.
Councilmember Ryan.
Here.
Councilmember Woodard.
Here.
Mayor Pro Tem Wall.
Here.
And I believe the mayor will be joining us later.
Mayor will be joining us as she can at some point remotely. We have two members that have asked to be excused. Do I have a motion to?
I move that we excuse Councilmember Murray and Councilmember Sonmore.
Motion? Second?
Second.
We have a motion and a second. All those in favor of excusing the members, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? All right, they have been excused. City Manager, do we have any late changes to the agenda?
No, Mayor Pro Tem, thank you.
Very good. Moving along to public comment. Do we have anybody signed up for public comment first and then doesn't? Nope. And anybody online that's submitted? All right, we have no public comment tonight. So then we move on to the consent calendar. Do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar? Actually, does anybody want to remove anything from consent calendar? All good? All right. Do I have a motion to approve the consent calendar?
Move that we approve the consent calendar.
Second?
Second.
All right, a motion and a second. All those in favor of approving the consent calendar, please say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Consent calendar has been approved. Moving along to the third review of the draft comprehensive plan, we have Senior Planner Jonathan Morales and Christy Osborne, Development Director. Welcome.
Good evening, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. My name is Jonathan Morales, Senior Planner. I'm here with Christy Osborne today, and we may have our consultant, Mandy Roberts, join remotely at some point during the meeting. So today we are here for a third review of the draft comprehensive plan, Vision 2044. The focus of today's meeting is to recap we wanted to bring back a recap of the periodic update review process, and continue that discussion on the recommended land use map and review the Planning Commission recommended draft that was distributed as part of this meeting packet today. So as you recall, when we began the scoping process for the comprehensive plan periodic update, we established a public participation plan, which really set the tone for how we will engage the public. And then also, it established interest in forming a comprehensive plan advisory group, or CPAG, that was made up of members of our community, including members who have not been involved in this kind of process before or aware of the topic areas. So we formed that group in September of 2023, and they met monthly until June over the course of 11 meetings. We also had a Planning Commission liaison, an alternate Planning Commission liaison as well, and then City Council member Steve Woodard as the council liaison. And the role of this group was to inform staff and as well as provide recommendations to the Planning Commission on goals and policy concepts, the vision statement, sub-area planning priorities, growth alternatives, and they acted as a sounding board and represented community values and perspectives. And then with Planning Commission, we began this process in February with a review of the scope of work and project timeline. Those was very early stages of what we were thinking for the periodic update. And Then that process ramped up around December 2023, where we provided some initial housing needs analysis data and some SEPA scoping findings from our SEPA scoping open house and survey. And then we had a briefing series that began in January over the course of 10 meetings, and this was really getting into the nitty-gritty of the policy work that we were doing for each element. And then council just, we had 5 separate meetings before our briefing series began. And then those briefings began in February with bringing forward CPAG and Planning Commission feedback on each of the element and policy direction. And just a reminder, we did have that Comprehensive Plan 101 joint workshop on October 4th, 2023. And the purpose of that was to just provide an overview of state requirements, some of the legislative requirements that we're incorporating as part of this process, and just general Growth Management Act requirements, and inform not only Planning Commission, CPAG, and Council, but also members of the public who were in attendance or viewed the recording online. So in terms of council, I did put this slide together just so you could recall what we've taken to this body in terms of the comprehensive plan. So I won't go into each of these, but just a reminder, in December 2023, we did provide that initial land capacity analysis and housing needs assessment work. In February, we presented some growth alternative concepts that were vetted by our CPAG group and Planning Commission. And August 22nd, we delivered the August 16th interim draft plan that we've been using up to today, which in your meeting packet, you have the recommended draft plan that the Planning Commission voted and adopted on. Voted and recommended. And then in terms of the goals and policies, there was a draft goals and policy matrix that was distributed to the council, I believe in mid-July, and that really have fully baked policy statements and goals that the Planning Commission were recommending. So that's been pretty consistent up to now. Right now, we're working on incorporating all the feedback that we've heard so far, in addition to agency comments and staff comments on the draft plan. So we will bring that draft to you by the next meeting packet. We're aiming to have that early next week, an updated version of that draft plan, which incorporates all of the feedback that we've heard so far. And then this slide is just summarizing the formal review process. So we had 6 meetings with Planning Commission before we got their recommendation on September 23rd. And we would, by October 16th, we will have 5 meetings with council. And just a reminder on that September 9th meeting, that wasn't supposed to be a scheduled meeting. That was, there was an interest in really digging deeper into the land use map. So we took the opportunity to have some more discussion with the Planning Commission to get to a conclusion on what they're thinking and what they're recommending as part of the land use map. So that is our next, community engagement, just a reminder of what we've done to engage the public as part of this process. Any questions before I move on to this section?
Do we have any questions? Everybody good? All right, carry on. Thank you.
So last meeting, we presented the recommended land use map. Since that meeting, we did make some minor updates. So for example, there was a parcel here in this area, Cedar Terrace Apartments, I think, that was incorrectly, had the wrong land use designation. So that's updated to be consistent with the Markland Woods condo just south of that site. And in your meeting packet, we have the updated map that includes the Town Center 2 and Town Center 3 colors swapped. I think that's the only change. And then in terms of what the basis is for the land use map, really the basis is the alternative to framework that we've studied as part of the draft EIS. And so we are basing the land use map on this. There is some more higher densities than what was originally proposed in alternative 2, and that was at the direction of the Planning Commission. And those higher densities are centered around those commercial node areas or neighborhood commercial areas that we've identified as key priorities for this process. And just to quickly summarize some of the key changes, if we compare the existing land use to what's proposed right now, we have these neighborhood mixed-use land uses, which are centered around existing commercial nodes, and they leverage proximity to neighborhood commercial opportunities, services, and transportation options. So that is the purple coloring. Residential designations accommodate middle housing densities, accessory dwelling units, and existing or future single-family dwelling units. Higher density is proposed along transportation corridors and adjacent to light rail. So for example, along 44th Avenue West, there's some higher density which would accommodate fourplexes, 4 units per lot. Gateway mixed use, which is previously the Freeway Tourist District. The only change to that is that we did bring down the max building height to 12 just to be consistent with Town Center 1 zoning. So that is minimum 6 stories, maximum 12 stories. And then portions of Town Center Reserve was changed to neighborhood mixed use just to leverage proximity to that King County line and some higher densities that are in that area of shoreline just south of us. Any questions?
Any questions on the land use map at this point? Very good, thank you.
We should also point out that the area south of Town Center that's in that kind of brownish color, these colors are changing on these maps. Every map looks different than what some of the colors actually are. This looks really brown, but we also increased densities, and during the Town Center process, we shied away from rezoning too much around Town Center, with the thought being that we wanted to develop the core first and then grow out from that. But with light rail and the requirements for middle housing and proximity to major transit, those densities as well have been upped. So you'll see that on here as well, of the desire to up those densities as required to comply with some of the middle housing legislation as well. You can also see some of, just to point out, along 66th and other areas of the city, again, along those transportation corridors, that those densities have been boosted as well. And then where we have some existing older multifamily stock, there is opportunities to redevelop those properties if and when people would like to redevelop them into some higher densities as well along, so again, some of those major transportation corridors particularly. So in a nutshell, we talked about it a little bit last week, but that's kind of the thought process behind the land use map.
Everybody good? Questions? All right, thanks.
Just to quickly add to that also, we applied, so for example, there's a question about the Sorelli's site, neighborhood mixed use. So across the way, there is single family land uses. our rationale is that we are proposing a 2-lot deep land use consistency. So if one side of the street is one zone, it makes sense to apply the same across the way. Yeah.
And those are larger lots as well. They have a good potential to redevelop across the street as well if someone chose to do that.
Okay. So on to the Planning Commission recommended draft. So the recommended draft is based on feedback that we received on goals and policies. So we had Planning Commission provide final feedback on goals and policies on July 29th, and that is reflected in the August 16th interim draft. They also assisted staff in crafting the vision statement, which was based on feedback that we heard from the CPAC group and also through community engagement processes like our open house and also the online open house. They provided feedback on the introduction chapter, so that was done, I believe, at the, let's see. Actually, we received that feedback July 15th. And then we worked with them to develop the preferred alternative selection, which we landed on alternative 2. And that was based in part of capacity concerns. If we did go the alternative 3 route, we wouldn't have sufficient capacity with water and sewer to meet that level of growth. And then our land use map was updated September 27th, and that is derived from alternative 2. Planning Commission also had a working session on sub-area key priorities for Melody Hill and Cascade View. So that was separate from the June 2024 sub-area workshop that we held at the Brighton School. And then just to note that all the recommendations that are noted here are reflected in that August 16th draft and have been carried forward in the recommended draft that's before you today. Between August 16th and September 23rd, we haven't received any further recommendations from Planning Commission other than the recommendations that we heard at the public hearing on the land use map. And then there was also direction from Planning Commission in terms of what priorities they're interested in following the public hearing. They would like to revisit the sub-area planning work annually, as well as providing guidance on design and development standards consistent with the land use map, which we'll be going through that process next. And so in terms of our next meeting, October 10th, what we'll plan to have for you is an updated draft that reflects comments that we received from agency partners, so Department of Commerce and Puget Sound Regional Council. And those comment letters are in your meeting packet. So if you wanted to read through what their comments were on the draft plan, some of those have been incorporated already, and we're working on ensuring that the rest are updated by early next week. And then staff, we have some final comments that we'll be delivering to the consultant early tomorrow. And any comments that we've received at the last council meeting or any comments that we get tonight, we'll make sure that that's reflected in that draft as well. And then our consultants are just working on finalizing some of the analysis, considering the modified alternative 2 land uses. So we have some transportation analysis that needs to be finalized, as well as some land capacity updates. And then as we bring this forward to you, we will ensure that any feedback that we hear is reflected and provided to you by the next meeting.
I just want to just say that we're also working on the request for the different zones, land use designations, and getting that information to you by zone and then in those sub areas as well. We were anticipating that we would receive that today. We should receive it no later than tomorrow, so we'll have that information that was requested, as well as adding the performance measures in the form of the criteria, and then the measures we're actually calling implementation strategies, tomato kind of a thing, but same intent is that these are the outcomes that we're going to be measuring versus the goals and policy language in the comp plan. So that will be included as well for you guys to take a look at, just to make sure we're tracking with what your comments were.
Very good. Any questions, discussion at this point? Councilmember Payne Donovan.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I guess these are sort of, there's a bit of commentary, just having reviewed the comment documents there. I found the PSRC sort of analysis real thorough, and some of it's sort of, well, I'm sure all of it is stuff that you're working on, but I found it sort of illuminating in a couple different respects, in that they call out sort of the need to better outline affordability, and this is a bit of me messaging thing, so don't take this necessarily as sort of a technical critique, but I do think they're highlighting, and I suspect that we've got our work cut out for us as a city and community, just in terms of looking at affordability in town center, specifically near the light rail station. I think they called that out, both for sort of planning and sort of strategy there, as well as sort of highlighting the need for us to identify emergency housing capacity in the city. I know that that's a tough, nut to crack, but really, I think it's as we're going through this process, it really behooves us to try to figure out how to do exactly that, because there's plenty of folks in need of that sort of emergency housing that really can save folks from getting out on the street, and we all know that our housing costs are not really reducing in any real way, as far as I can tell. So appreciated the call outs there, and also some of the comments on transportation element. I know that we'll be working on our transportation master plan in the coming year, but found the regional council's comments on transportation work sort of helpful, and I'm looking forward to sort of getting a bit further in the weeds in the coming months, or the coming year, when it comes to sort of multimodal planning and sort of building off of the good work that you have in this plan already. So those are my comments, and I'll stop there. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Payne Donovan. Anybody else? All right, go ahead.
So in terms of next steps, we'll be presenting October 10th that updated draft plan with the changes reflected. And then we'll continue to seek feedback from council. October 16th is a scheduled public hearing on the plan. And just in terms of some materials that we will have for you, October 10th, the draft plan, draft ordinance, staff memo. Then October 16th, draft plan with any changes that we received October 10th reflected in that draft, the ordinance, and then the staff memo. That is it for my presentation today.
Very good, thank you. All right, so just to, actually, any final feedback, discussion? Very good. So just to clarify for us and for the public, the draft plan with the changes will be available early next week online, I believe.
Yes.
And so that is our opportunity to take a deep dive, our last chance to take a deep dive into the draft plan, because on the 10th, we will want to have full discussion and finalize any changes that we want to recommend, because we're having the public hearing and looking to adopt the comprehensive plan as amended from the 10th, from our discussion, final discussion on the 10th, as amended on the 16th, unless there is substantial concern from public comments that causes us to need to delay adoption. Just want to make sure that we're all looking at the timeline and planning ahead based on the fact that the 10th will be really our best chance to have any final comments incorporated into the plan that we're looking to adopt on the 16th. Make sense? Everybody good? All right, very good. Well, thank you all. Appreciate the presentation, and look forward to seeing the updated draft plan next week and having further discussion.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. All right, next up, we've got the review of the preliminary report of the 2025-26 revenue estimates and presentation of the proposed 25-26 biennial budget with our city manager, Jeff Knighton, and our new, welcome, finance director, Sergey Solomon. Solomon? So, yeah, sorry, didn't have anyway, welcome. There you go.
There you go. I think we need to add new to my title, new finance director, because I'm being introduced like that, and I think that'll keep me safe.
Right, we'll let that
I'll
last.
always be new.
Yeah, we'll let that last for what, about a year?
At least, or two, yeah.
It takes a little while to get our feet on the ground, but welcome. We're excited to have you.
Thank you.
For joining us tonight. And Jeff Serkey, carry on. Tell us about the proposed preliminary report and estimates for the budget.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. So we have just a few slides tonight. Jonathan had 17. I have 54, or we have 54. So we'll see what we can do to make sure that we share all this information with you accurately, and so everybody is on the same page. So the purpose of this budget document and this process is to review the proposed 25-26 budget by the council and the community. I want the community to take a look at this as well, and to provide, the purpose this evening is to provide a high-level overview of what our projected revenues are and our expenses for the next biennium. So our agenda tonight is a review of the process, a restatement of the council's strategic plan and budget priorities, give a little bit of perspective on the state of the economy and the city, preliminary report of revenue estimates, and highlights and changes that you'll see in this document. So just to give you a rundown of where we've been and where we are, we've conducted several surveys and community engagement activities in different seasons. So we have spring, summer, all kinds of stuff, and opportunities for people to get involved and learn about budgeting at the municipal level. And then we are looking at presenting to you tonight and then over the next several meetings, and we'll share a slide at the end that shows all the opportunities that council and community members will have to get involved in this process. So community engagement, we did the biennial community survey in very early this year and shared that with you and with the community from Polco, if you remember that presentation. And then we hosted a public forum on April 2nd for the community to tell us what their priorities were. And we also had an online poll for people to participate and tell us what they thought is important to them for the future of Mountlake Terrace. So the community feedback on budget priorities, we had respondents, we gave everybody $100, fake $100, and asked them to give it back to us basically in different, how they would separate things out. And then we counted everything up at the end. And you can see here, public safety is number 1, and infrastructure and maintenance is number 2, and there's a pretty steep drop off after that. So people are interested in maintaining what we currently own and not having to replace that wholesale, but also ensuring that we budget and prioritize public safety for the community. So the themes you can see on the screen here, many of the same themes come across the different surveys. So active transportation infrastructure and maintenance for our streets, parks, water, and sewer. Those things are expensive. As we saw when we repaved 66th north of 220th, just that strip from 220th to the interurban trail, how expensive that was. And then if we need to replicate that throughout the city, that gets quite expensive. So maintaining what we have, I think, shows is very important. And then consider what the community can afford with new expenses and make sure we communicate. And we try very hard to do that, as you can see through all the public engagement activities, and we'll continue to try to do that as much as we can. I thought an interesting element of this one was add more affordable housing. You know, people, this council for sure, and Planning Commission and everybody else involved is aware and pressing for this, but the community tells us the exact same thing. So I think that's a good thing to highlight. And making sure that we address environmental issues and maintaining the stormwater system. We had a fantastic presentation from Laura Reed last week about our efforts to do that. Also, focus on social equity and providing more options for residents to work and shop in the city. So we have a great new light rail station, but if we have the opportunity for people to work here and shop here, I think that would be ideal for this community. And ensuring responsible management of city finances and reasonable taxes. So that is also a strategic council goal to make sure that we maintain those things. So it looks like from the feedback that we've been getting from our community that everybody's on the same page, and I think that's a good thing. It provides a clear direction for us. So the results, the community survey results, and I believe this one was from the Polco presentation, but again, you see the natural environment, parks, recreation, safety are the three highest priorities for the community. So again, all speaking the same language, which is terrific. 8 in 10 residents, which is great, plan to remain in our community for the next 5 years and would recommend us. And we can see that from a story we saw just a couple days ago that 98043 Mountlake Terrace is the fastest selling area in the nation for homes. We have homes staying on the market 27 days, and that's faster than anywhere else in the U.S. So that's a great thing. Great thing to see. People like what we have happening here, and they want to be a part of it, and that's a great thing. At least that's what I take out of it. 8 in 10 rate the city as a good or excellent place to live and raise children, and rate the quality of life as good or excellent. Fantastic. That doesn't mean we can't improve, and that we will continue to try to improve those results over time. I love this picture. This is some of the events that we've expanded this year from our Movies in the Park program. But overall, the ratings for quality of life remain high, and the items related to transportation and mobility rate higher than the national benchmark, and we have improved those since 2022. And again, the outdoor activities are fantastic. The local economy continues to be a high or a top issue for residents. So with that, I'd like to talk a little bit about the council's strategic plan that council and staff worked through earlier this year and developed, I think, a clear vision for where the community is going over the next several years. So you can read the vision here, but it drives directly to those points that we talked about a little bit earlier. Safe and inclusive community, beautiful parks, abundant recreation, connected neighborhoods, and a supportive business environment. And then we get to each of the goals. And growing our vibrant community, that's directly related to Mountlake Terrace, but also, I think, tags back a little bit to that point where people want to be here. If we're the fastest selling market, home market in the country, people want to be a part of this. And that's terrific. We want them to join us. Responsible governance to ensure a desired level of service. I think this is important to all of us, where we can maintain and increase efficiencies on how we operate and what we do as part of the city across all instances, whether that's your water and sewer network or whether that's making sure that passports are done quickly and on time, or whether it's making sure you get your permit in a timely manner and that you know what to expect. The expectations are met. And third, we have the informed and engaged community goal, council's strategic plan. I think many of the things Jonathan and Christy talked about a little bit earlier with the open houses and the opportunity to engage the community, along with the opportunities we have provided and will continue to provide for people to get involved in the budget process. Yep.
Sorry, I just wanted to note for the record that the mayor has joined us remotely.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
I'm in the zone. We provide through the comprehensive planning process, also through the budget process, the opportunity for people to talk to us, tell us what's important to them, and then see how we can produce that within the resources that we have available. And then council's fourth goal is environmental sustainability and resiliency. And again, you saw that reflected in the community survey comments that was important to them. And this picture is just showing one example of how we're doing that at Lake Ballinger and the Hall Creek project that was recently completed. So planning for the 25-26 budget. We have these opportunities for folks to comment on what we're doing. These upcoming council meetings, including tonight, you see over the next 4 council meetings, and then again on November, actually the next 7 council meetings. People will have an opportunity to comment on the budget process, the budget priorities, and how we're allocating our resources for the next 2 years. We also did a Terrace talk focused on budget just a few weeks ago that we got some great questions at, and I was happy to talk to people, whether online or here in person, about just general budget items, where our revenues come from, where our spending goes, you know, some of the challenges we face and how we might address those. So, state of the economy. So we are a smaller city in the Puget Sound region, although we are growing rapidly. But we have to look at the impact on the regional and national economic trends as what's going to impact us and where we think we'll be, so that we can accurately predict and accurately allocate our resources. So you have a few things here that we mention and how they might impact us. Consumer buying trends and what kind of sales tax that's going to generate. A big one that you'll see reflected when we get into the numbers here in a few slides is the one-time money that we received from the federal government from the impact of COVID. That's going away, so we need to make sure we recognize that. And a few, you know, inflation has been a hot topic for everyone, and it's significantly down from its peak, but will it continue to stay that way? Those are things that we have to pay attention to the wider environment in order to be able to predict it as accurately as we can. So state and Jeff.
I was going to just comment on the real estate. You know, we have interest rates that just went down. They didn't go down too much, but we're expecting the feds to lower the interest rates more. And so the real estate sales, expecting that to go up. And especially because of what you just said earlier about this Mountlake Terrace being the fastest selling the housing market in the nation right now. So we can probably expect those revenues to go up.
Thanks. So economic trends, we have inflation due to supply chain issues and workforce participation rate is down. These are, you can see the citations at the bottom of the slide there, but you know, paying attention to all these environmental trends. You can see, I mentioned inflation a little bit before, in June of 22, what the inflation rate was, right at about 10%. Today, it's, what is that, right at about 3%? Or in August, it was about 3%. So the downward trajectory of inflation, but again, paying attention to what's going on so we can accurately predict that over the coming years. Some of the things that we've seen that we think will change due to what Sergey just mentioned with the falling interest rate is sales were down since the second quarter of 2023, so we're building permits, but prices continue to climb. So what we think this means is that because interest rates have fallen, but there is still the climbing price pressure, is that we'll see more building activity due to those two factors. There's pent-up demand, and money is now cheaper than it has been. We think that will result in additional starts. So consumer spending trends, first and second quarter of 2024, so consumption is up 1.5%. Spending on services grew at 3.3%, but spending on goods declined by $2 roughly. So taking that into account as we look at this, this is always an interesting chart for me when we were going over the presentation and deciding which one of us was going to do what slide. Both of us kind of laughed at this one because you don't ever see that, but you can see there where the effect that the shutdown had on the labor market here in Washington State, but then the very quick drop in that unemployment rate over the next, well, didn't seem quick at the time, but when you look at it on a timeline like this, it does look pretty quick. So the state budget, the increased property tax collections by 2.1%, REIT, real estate excise taxes, by 5.7%, and liquor and litter tax receipts by 5.5%. The state projects that revenues to be 2.2% higher through 25. So that's what we have there. So our city finances, the property tax rate, the value of our levy has decreased over time. So we have that levy rate set, but then we gave a presentation several months ago about the parks levy the council adopted and how the actual value of that, I believe it was 25 cents, declined over time since it was adopted. We have not used bank capacity or taken advantage of councilmanic property tax increases, and whether we have maximized the use of our sales tax. So labor is, and we'll fill this in, but we talked about last November the market analysis that we did for our non-represented employees and how it was necessary to attract and retain, increases to salaries were necessary to attract and retain team members who are able to produce the results and the vision that this council would like to see. So that is part of it. One thing I always look at when we're talking about increased cost of key services is insurance. So our liability insurance premiums have doubled in the last 5 years. That's incredible and very difficult to sustain over time. And recreation is recovering. As Jeff, our Parks and Recreation Facilities Director, Jeff Betts, has mentioned several times, and we are looking to reopen reopen the pavilion on Sundays for the first time since prior to COVID. So looking at that as well. And with that, because we're actually going to get into numbers, I will turn it over to our Finance Director. But these are the changes that I wanted to highlight from the 23-24 budget to the proposed 25-26. So we have the increased salary and benefit cost, the impacts of the regional and state economy. We are proposing 2 new positions in this 25-26 budget, and only 2. One is not really a new position. It's Andrew Applewick's position, our event coordinator. It was initially funded with one-time money through ARPA, but we need to transition that to a funding stream that will actually be available. So we call it a new position, but it's actually one that's filled, and Andrew has done a great job producing those events that we have, we discussed a little bit earlier in the presentation. And then probably the biggest driver, the biggest change in this budget from 23-24 is the impacts of the upcoming Washington State Supreme Court decision on public defense caseloads for public defenders in the state. That's going to be no small amount when those caseloads are capped. So you can see the other pieces there on the screen. And with that, I'll turn it over to Sergey, and I'll operate the slides for you.
My favorite part, numbers. I'm going to apologize right now because I still have bronchitis and I keep losing my voice, so bear with me. So let's start with the general fund, and this is also known as the operating fund. And this includes the operations of the city, the departments, or like public safety, administration, parks, and community development. So the revenues, the majority of our revenues come from the top three: property tax, sales tax, and utility taxes. So I want to note on the property tax, you'll see in 2023, there's almost $7 million in property taxes, and then it drops down to 3.9 and continues from there. And that is due to the city annexing into the fire district. So now the fire district receives those property taxes instead of the city. And then sales tax, property tax, I also want to mention that that is a guaranteed revenue source, where that is a very stable revenue source for the city. It does not fluctuate much. And then sales tax, that is our largest revenue source for the general fund. That is pretty volatile, that we have to analyze that every year and look at where the economy is going and think about that and how we're going to budget based on that. I do know a city up north, I've never worked for it, but they rely, you probably know which city, but they rely highly on sales tax, and they've had to look at different revenue sources, especially when the recession hit in 2008. They lost the majority of their revenues for general fund. So we want to keep an eye on that, but we don't see it going anywhere but up right now. Especially with hoping people move into Mountlake Terrace. Utility taxes, so the city is able to tax utility taxes like natural gas, electricity, cable, taxes like that, or utilities like that, and also the city's water, sewer, and storm. We tax our enterprise funds. And then some of the other ones, gambling. You guys gamble a lot here. I don't know what percentage we get of gambling. Is it 10%? 10% we get of the gross? And then licenses and permits, those are for a lot of community development revenues. So before I move on, any questions about the revenues for the general fund?
Does anybody have any questions? Looks like we're good to go.
Okay. This is just another format. They're the same numbers. It's a different format, a different way of looking at it. You can see that sales tax is the highest pie on the chart, and then property taxes and utility taxes. So the expenditures, public safety, which goes right along with all the surveys from the community. Public safety is important, and that will always, I've seen that throughout different cities, that public safety is the largest expenditure in the general fund. And then administration would be second, because there are so many departments within administration. The reimbursement, something to note on where it says reimbursement from utilities, that is an overhead allocation that the enterprise funds needs to pay the general fund, because all of us work also doing things for the utilities. So it's just an overhead allocation that we get reimbursed for. I want to mention that the general fund is an unrestricted fund where the money can be spent anywhere within the city, any department. We don't always recommend that, but it can be. And whereas later I can talk about the enterprise funds where those are more restricted.
Yeah. I also wanted to mention here, you can see the ending fund balance there. And we have continuing a trend from 2022 through 23, 24, and now here again in 25, 26 that we are using fund balance to balance the budget. This is the main reason that I have recommended, and we're going to implement the Financial Sustainability Task Force to address this problem before it becomes a problem, so we don't see the issues many of our neighbors are having right now. Council in the past has had the foresight to be very careful about spending that money, so we're lucky to have a fund balance that looks like this, but we need to address it before it becomes a problem and be proactive about it. So just wanted to throw that out there.
Okay. Also, I wanted to mention,
Sorry. Councilmember Woodard.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. I just want to always make sure that this gets kicked down this road as well. These numbers we're looking at technically do not account for these 3 major developments that are in the process. I mean, they paid permits and all of that, so it's ongoing, but there's a big flush potentially of money with 3 communities coming. Just wanted to say that out loud.
Yeah, no, these numbers do not reflect the completed developments once they're done. But very good point. Thank you.
I also wanted to mention the transfers out. A lot of the general fund transfers go to the recreation, information systems, street operating fund, and then we also have debt service that comes out of the general fund. And then another format for the expenditures, just to show that safety is the highest expenditure in the city. The special revenue funds, so these are more restricted funds. We receive money, different taxes, it might be grants, different sources of revenue, and they are restricted to just certain projects, certain funds. For instance, the car tabs, those are for streets. We can only use them for streets. We cannot use them for general fund. We cannot use them for the police department, as much as they would love to have that money. So that's what the special revenue, these are some of the special revenue funds that we have. So here are the revenues, and the majority of those come from the services, and then taxes, those are usually the ones that are very restricted. Let's see if there's anything. Transfers in 23, usually when you see something higher in these slides, it's the ARPA funds. They really have, it makes the budget kind of look odd and not your regular revenues and expenditures. Is there anything else on this one, or any questions on the revenues for?
Anybody have any questions on enterprise funds, or sorry, special revenue funds? Very good, carry on, thank you.
Okay. And another graph just showing a different format. And the expenditures, what can we say about this? The public works expenditure, that is for streets. Just to clarify that, I think we can change that to streets. What is there? It's kind of a self-explanatory. Transfers out, I believe those were also ARPA funds that we are not transferring out for the next 2 years. Any question? Yeah.
You can see the dramatic difference that ARPA makes and that transfers out. When you go from, 1.4 million this year or 2.8 last year to zero, that's a pretty dramatic difference.
Any questions? Very good. Thank you.
Okay, just another format. The enterprise funds. So as I mentioned earlier, the enterprise funds, first of all, are like a business. So whatever services they provide, that's where they get the revenues, and they use those revenues for their operations. And the enterprise funds, they are not able to give the general fund money. They are not able to give each of the other ones. Water cannot provide sewer with money, or they can't provide storm water with money, and it goes in all directions. They can give loans, but then the other fund has to pay interest. So that's kind of the general idea of the enterprise funds. It is a business for the city. And I'm very much losing my voice. The revenues, most of the revenues obviously come from charges of services, and there are some, and we get investment income. Some of the other revenues are different things, buy-ins, locates, some of those. There are lots of little revenue sources that come into each of those funds. And another format, charges for services, that's the biggest revenue source. Expenditures, debt service, we do have revenue bonds, and we have loans, and we pay debt service, and we have to pay them out of those funds. The revenues for the services have to cover the debt service. Capital projects, that's always up and down. Did you want to talk about some of the capital projects that we have, the 10 million? Off the top of my head, I don't.
We can go over those during the Public Works presentation when engineering comes up and gives you the presentation to give you a more detailed overview.
Okay, and another format. And internal service funds. So these are funds that are internal to the city, and the city uses different resources. Everybody in the city uses information systems, and we have vehicles throughout, and the different departments use those. So this is a fund that really makes it more transparent to see where those funds are going, instead of them coming out of each department, chunks out of each department. This is new for this year, I believe, this coming year.
Yeah, fleet has been an internal service fund, so each, like the police department pays into it to buy police cars when the old ones wear out. Information services is a new internal service fund for this year, because like Sergey mentioned, it's a more transparent way to allocate the costs based on need. Rather than, having part of it in the capital budget, part of it in the city manager's budget, and nobody knows what's going on or where it's going. It's not easy for the public to discern what we're using that money for. With the internal services fund, I'll just use the permitting software as an example. So community and economic development use that permitting software, but so does Public Works. So both those departments would pay proportionally into the internal service fund to pay for the software that they use for that. And we believe that that's a more transparent and open way to show the use of these resources.
And that's the charges for services come from the different departments. It's all internal. And same with expenditures. And then we do have some capital expenditures would be purchasing vehicles, equipment. Basically, that's what the capital would be. And just the different format.
Take this one. So, yeah, this is the opportunities we have for council to take a look, review the information, provide us comments. We can iterate throughout the budget process to make sure that we are doing this in a way that is meets your desire and your vision for how the city operates. So we have October 10th. We will have presentations by the city manager's office, finance, community and economic development, police and municipal court. So that's next week. On the 16th, we will talk about public works, and that's where we'll talk about the capital projects that we mentioned a few minutes earlier. Public works gets to go on their own because even though it seems like one department versus, 5 there, their presentation will be just as long as everybody else's. On the 24th, Recreation Parks Facilities, the CIP, and IT will present, and then it'll come together as the first first review of the proposed 25-26 budget altogether, although you will get the information next week. And then we'll have the review and public hearing on the property tax levy and the second review and public hearing on the budget, and hopefully on November 21st. But we did leave some room in there in case there were still questions towards the end, that we would have a couple meetings to be able to slide and make sure that all your questions are answered before a vote is called on this. And then we have the supplemental budget, which is something I like to do right at the end of the year to basically true up what we've done at the end of this year to make sure the numbers are correct. The other part of that is ensuring that we obligate all the dollars that we can from ARPA so we don't have to send anything back. And that's all I have. We would be happy to answer any questions.
Very good. Any questions on the process? Okay, and these are exciting times. We've had a busy year. I think we all know we've had a lot of exciting things happening, but obviously, just as we're winding down with a huge comprehensive plan update in the next couple of weeks, we're starting to ramp up basically the implementation of that, starting with the budget. And so it's going to be important. And of course, the budget is all presumed based on our council goals that we did a lot of work on earlier in the year. So it's really excited to see this coming together. Really pleased to have this the presentation here today to give us an idea of where we're going and the time frame in the budget. We do have some, as has been pointed out, some challenging times as far as revenues. The ending fund balance is a concern. We've been flagging that. We're all aware of that. We've been flagging that all along and recognize that. As the city manager points out, we've got the planning on a sustainability task force to ensure that we don't find ourselves in the red in 6 years. But the numbers here, I think the key numbers in looking at the budget overview, general fund balance, ending fund balance on that one slide that we had is the key thing that we need to be paying attention to. I think we've got a good, based on what I understand, but we are going to have the budget provided to us next week. So that'll be the start. We'll have the presentations from the different departments, but we should have the actual budget numbers in front of us early next week for us to be able to start reviewing and digging deep into that. All right, with that, any other questions? Councilmember Woodard.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Not about the budget, but about engagement in general. One, I wanted to applaud whoever's graphic, you're not going to see this, the graphic that we have. Listen in to the introduction, and it's a green budget. It's a beautiful picture of our pier and the date. I really like that. I just wanted to encourage that. I actually thought that might get people interested. So I can't see who's online, but I would like to think that maybe next time we do something like that, it might again grab people's attention. And then just wanted to encourage whoever came up with that to come up with more creative ways. I think we as a council are trying our best to get people to engage. This is literally your money. And I think that's our message that we keep giving folks. Deeply honored to be one of the 7 to decide how that money is spent, but we would really love to hear from you as well, which we have, but now is really where it's going to matter. all of it mattered, but even much more so now. So just wanted to encourage whoever that was to continue to do that, keep thinking of ways to reach out to the community, and maybe use the webpage to take just one piece that you can digest and walk it through. Maybe that will get people, so it's not as intimidating.
Yeah.
I know it's taken 5 times for me to hear this on some levels to really get it, and I don't think I'm a slow person. So it's one of those where I'm like, this is dense material, and it feels inaccessible, but you should not be giving your rights over to people. We still need your input talking to our residents. So applaud you all. I'm looking forward to this very thoughtful process.
True story. Thank you, Councilmember Woodard. Any, Councilmember Payne Donovan?
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. And I guess build off Councilmember Woodard's comments, real proud of the fact that we're doing this sort of community-based exercise and really centering the fact that this money and the planning for it is, from community and it's for community. And those words sound good. Those words sound good, excuse me, and unless folks show up or unless we can help, I think more appropriately, help connect this process with our neighbors, it's going to be a missed opportunity if we can't do that. So I think we're headed the right direction, and I guess a couple other thoughts, just looking at this really thorough presentation, to see that chart with the big spike, and to think about all the things that we as a society and a city and personally have gone through the last 5-6 years, and what that means in terms of planning and assuming things about the money we can expect to collect. I think it's hopefully, this process, if we can do this together, will set a path for success out in front of us. I also want to note, I think on one of the slides there early on, you pointed out that there are revenue increases expected. However, what I'm hearing in my day job working at the sort of state legislative sandbox, whatever assumptions that are being made to maintain sort of level of service, we're still looking at deficit budgets at the state this coming year. And given that we're coming out of this pandemic period where there has been sort of flush coffers, I think it behooves us, as we're doing here in Mountlake Terrace, whether that's looking sort of at our programs, looking at regional partnerships and ways to save money, or going to the state legislature and saying, look, we've got these new regulations, we're executing our comp plan in accordance with them, we're experiencing this growth, we're planning for sort of best outcomes with this growth. We also need some partnership to, whether it's, insurance is a sticky question, but looking at opportunities to move forward and, advocate together. I think we've talked a bit about that, but I think there are some real opportunities there to partner on, everything from infrastructure to the services that we know we and our neighbors are really asking for. So, really happy to see us here and see the plan for the next 2 months ahead, especially. I think this is going to be really important and growthful conversation. I'm going to keep making up words here. Anyway, thank you both for your presentation and looking forward to doing this work.
Agreed. Thank you, Councilmember Payne Donovan. Any final comments? Looks like we are good in wrapping up that section. Thank you both for sharing in the presentation. Looking forward to having further in-depth discussion about the budget as we move forward.
Thank you.
Thank you. And hurry back to your seat, City Manager. You're next up. Thank you, Sir Kay. All right, City Manager's report. Jeff. Go ahead.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem, members of council. Couple things to mention tonight. First, right back into budget stuff. And the reason why I mentioned that is because one of the requirements that we have, and I mentioned during the presentation, that we like to do a supplemental true-up right at the end of the year to make sure we know we're crystal clear on where everything stands. But one of the things we need to do or required to do is share with you what our estimates are for the end of the year for each of the funds. So oops, I skipped a page. Skipped a couple of pages. So for the general fund, on the revenue side, we expect to be at about 17.8 million at the end of the year. It's a little bit different from the adopted budget because of the RFA that we mentioned, the annexation into the RFA. For the expenditure side, our adopted budget is a little over 10.5 million for 2024, and the expenditures are expected to come in, at least estimated to come in right now at about 9.2. So that's a good thing. On special revenue funds, we'll end the year with about 5.3 million in that fund, within where we need to be. And for the expenditures, we're actually going to be a bit lower than the adopted budget for 2024 at 3.05 million on the expenditure side. Finally, on the enterprise funds, we have expected or projected revenues of 25.3 million, well within where we thought we would be. And on the expenditure side, we are looking for a total expenditure of 23.3 million at the end of the year. Those are anticipated, but again, we'll refine those with the supplemental when we get to that point in December. And a couple other things to mention quickly. The 70th anniversary display that I mentioned is up at the library. It went up on October 1st and is expected to run through all of October. It's this section of that anniversary display is called Origins, and it shows items from the history of Mountlake Terrace and its founding. The original council roll call is over there. So those kind of things are pretty neat to see. Tonight at 10, we are going to close 236th for final striping in front of the transit station. It'll be closed till 5 a.m. and it'll close again tomorrow night, 10 to 5. So we wanted to get that out there. We have communicated that on social media platforms, but wanted to mention it tonight also. And then lastly, wanted to thank the Ivy League for the work that they did at Terrace Creek Park last week. I haven't been able to get out there yet, but I've been told it looks terrific. So that's all I have. I'm happy to answer any questions.
Very good. Thank you, City Manager. Do we have any questions? It's like we're good, so we'll move on. Indeed, we will, to the council liaison reports. Let's start to my left with Councilmember Woodard.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. On the 20th, I did participate in the Art Show Awards that took place right here, but I'll leave that recap for Councilmember Ryan. It seems most appropriate to come from him. The next day, I did have the honor of participating in the DEIC, and they had a number of sponsors, I believe, in their Welcome Week. It was just an absolutely fabulous experience. I saw a lot of you there, media-wise, so I'll leave that as well for one of you to talk about. On the 25th, middle of the week, I was able to go and pull a shift at the art show as a volunteer, which is always fun. Just amazing folks coming through the library and getting to redirect people who didn't know the art show was there, and then they're just amazed to learn it's there, and it's just a lot of fun and a different way to engage with our community. 26th, I was with all you fine folks at the study session. And then on the Saturday, this was actually really touching, South County Fire did their promotions and retirements. It was an absolutely beautiful ceremony. My spouse and I were able to attend, and I'll just leave it at that. It was just such a wonderful ceremony. I encourage anybody, if the opportunity comes up again, it will be worth your time. A lot of tears, and just all in all, just a wonderful experience. And then I'll end it with just yesterday, and I'm glad our finance director is still here. for taking the job. She's happy to know that we had a clean audit, so I was able to participate in the exit interview, and I brought all of you into the room, of course, and I apologize that not everybody's schedule gets to fit to show up in the middle of the day, but I was honored to be there, and thankfully it only took about 15 minutes. That's how awesome this staff has been. And folks, just so you remember to keep this in context, we've had a lot going on. So to get a clean audit in the midst of all this is truly a kudos to this staff and the morale and the leadership. So thank you all. And again, thank you for taking the helm. And I hope we've done a good job by at least handing you a clean audit. And now you can move forward. All righty. Into my report.
Thank you, Councilmember Woodard. All right, Councilmember Ryan.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. On September 20th, I was here in Chambers for our annual 44th Arts at Terrace Show award-winning presentation and preview night. And then I helped out with the the art show from the 21st Saturday to the 28th Saturday, and actually probably a week before that and a week after, but who's counting? And want to thank all the volunteers and council members and commissioners that helped out with the show. Thank you. And thanks for the donations from D&D Meats and Snohomish Pie Company. Then on the 26th, I was here for work study session. And then today, the 3rd, I had my monthly city manager engagement. And that's the end of my report.
Very good. Thank you, Councilmember Ryan. Councilmember Payne Donovan.
Thank you, Mayor Pro Tem. Well, I sadly wasn't able to make the award ceremony, but I did get a chance to check the art show out and was impressed. I think it sort of builds, for my time viewing it, which really has gone from strength to strength, and know that the community's really, it's hard to understate how strong it's becoming and how beloved it is in the community. I know that been hearing lots of exciting hubbub about it, and folks really enjoyed it. So kudos to Councilmember Ryan and all involved. I also attended the work session on the 26th and was only briefly able to join the AHA meeting yesterday, and that wraps up my report. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Payne Donovan. Madam Mayor, would you like to share your liaison report? You in a position to be able to do so?
Okay.
There you are.
Yes, my report, is that on? September 20th, I also attended the art show reception and awards, and we really need a bigger space because we have one of the best shows around, and we need to have a place that we can show it off better. So, off my soapbox on that. On the 21st, I also attended the DEI Welcoming Week, DEI and the school district and so many other sponsors on this. What a great event that we had, and I want to see it happen more often, annually, and then like Mayor Pro Tem was telling me earlier, to add some entertainment to it, entertainment from all over different cultures. On the 23rd, I attended the Snohomish County Mayors, and we meet by Zoom because this is all of Snohomish County. And on the 1st of October, the executive and the mayors met. And on the 2nd of October, the South County mayors met for lunch. And it's really unusual to have all three mayors meetings at once, because a couple of these are monthly and others are not. And then in the evening on the 2nd, yesterday, I attended the AHA meeting, and we just need to figure out different ways of getting housing built. And so we're just, it's a brainstorming session yesterday. And then today I am in the city of Ellensburg for the AWC mayor's meeting. And we had a walking tour of Ellensburg with the mayor and the city manager. And I had never been to downtown Ellensburg before. And they're doing a lot of things. They're very, very proud of the things that they're accomplishing, just like we are in our city and other cities right now. They use ARPA dollars to good use. And I'm getting a lot of ideas. Tomorrow is an all-day session, and I'm going to get a whole bunch more ideas and bring it back to the city. And that's the end of my report. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Madam Mayor. All right, so for my report, on the 20th, also attended the art show and the award ceremony. And what amazing artists we have here in Mountlake Terrace and around the area. Just, I hope everybody had a chance to at least go in and take a look, because it is some amazing work that's being done, and look forward to having more opportunities to share the artistic talent that we have here in the community. The following day, on the 21st, also attended the Welcoming Week. Again, as the mayor points out, it's a great event. I look forward to expanding upon that. That was our first one out of the gate. I think there's a lot of, it was fantastic program, fantastic event. Thank you, all those staff that helped make that happen. And as the mayor points out, I really think that's a great opportunity for us to really expand on what we did this last time, and do more performing arts and do cultural activities and song and dance and potentially food into the future activities. I think it's a great way to showcase the different cultures we have here in Mountlake Terrace and share different ideas. All right, then on the 24th, we had, I mentioned this kind of briefly last week, but some of us got together with the West Plaza businesses and property owners that have shared their concerns about 57th Avenue. And I think we had a great meeting to talk about and iron through some of their concerns and identify some solutions that we adopted during the economic development strategy, as well as we'll be considering next week when we look at the comp plan update again. So I think we're solving problems here. So we're looking forward to sharing, continuing on with that. But I think we made good progress from that meeting. Following that meeting, also attended the Mountlake Terrace Chamber networking session, and then on the 25th had the Snohomish County Tomorrow Steering Committee meeting, where we had, we reviewed and adopted the ICC 2024 Regional Project Evaluation Committee recommendations for other cities and towns representatives. We reviewed the Snohomish County organizational structure, and one of the things I've been talking about for a while is, and looking forward to really expanding the role of Snohomish County Tomorrow. And so it's not just a growth planning body, but really a collaboration of governments working together around the county, addressing the different challenges that we're facing, whether it's growth management planning will continue to be an issue in land use and how we address housing and economic development, but also public safety, mental health, substance abuse, all the different challenges we're facing here in our city, but every other city around the county is facing the same challenges. And so making it a body that really shares ideas and information, and something that I think is exciting potential for where we're going with Snohomish County Tomorrow. A lot of footwork is going into that, and we had a great discussion at our last steering committee meeting, followed by the executive committee meeting, which was on the 2nd, where, as you know, the co-chairs and the co-vice chairs and some other staff are involved from Snohomish County Tomorrow in the executive committee, where we were really ironing out the details of what we're, based on the feedback that we're getting. And we're looking at some, rebranding Snohomish County Tomorrow, adding organizational structure. More on that, I guess, as the details come together. But I will note that a reminder that on the General Assembly. We all have an opportunity to participate in that discussion. The General Assembly for Snohomish County tomorrow is December 11th. I believe it's 6 p.m., but we'll be sending out a notice to everybody on that in the next week. So be looking for that, and I'll be obviously following up and discussing that further. But that, again, will be our opportunity to really discuss that as a region with all the council members, not just those of the identified representatives on the steering committee, and looking forward to really getting a lot of feedback on that. All right, then jumping back to the 26th, I had the PSRC, Puget Sound Regional Council Operations Committee, followed by the Executive Board meeting, where we discussed the recommendations for the 2025 Washington State Legislature. Also discussed the Housing Research Center. So one of the things that we're looking at doing is creating a Housing Research Center here in Washington State, and led by the PSRC and here in the region to help make that happen. So we're looking at and that's going to just provide beyond the resources that PSRC already provides on housing, will really provide a lot of research and information for us to be able to use as we're making our decisions and considering how we address housing in the future. We also had the discussion about the Regional Transportation Plan for 2026 through 2050 for the Puget Sound region, and the development of kind of developing the scope of work and how that's coming together. Good discussion on that at the Executive Board meeting. All right, so then that gets us to, and then the South Snohomish County Council Presidents and Mayors Pro Tem met on the 1st of October, where we continue really discussing in detail we've talked about the regional collaboration, and I think we're really proud of the work that this group of Council Presidents and Mayors Pro Tem has been helping to advance that discussion. We'll be having a follow-up meeting again later this month with the full group, but we had a great discussion during our last meeting, kind of identifying a lot of the different areas that we can work together, and doing things like taking advantage of. One of the big issues that's out there is we are paying as residents here in South County a tax, an additional sales tax for mental health and substance abuse and for affordable housing, and that's all going to the county. We're not sure how those dollars are being utilized, and we think that there's an opportunity to put together a plan and present it to our county council members and see if we can help ensure that those dollars are being used to serve our residents. There's a lot of other opportunities that we're looking at, considering an assessment of kind of the assets and the services and the needs that each of our communities have, and how we might be able to do a better job working together and better utilizing resources for all of us, and identifying cost efficiencies and how we might be able to share services and assets, and like stripers, things like that. But there's a lot of good detail that's going into those discussions. Again, we'll have more detail on that as we go on. All right, then earlier today, I had the meeting with the mayor and the city manager, where we continue to discuss our city priorities, from budget to comprehensive plan to economic development strategy to everything else that we're working on here in the city. So I think that concludes my report. Any questions of any of our liaison reports? If not, looks like we are ready to move on to new business. Does anybody have any new business? All right, seeing none, I am happy to declare this meeting over. Move to adjourn.